Hello, welcome. I hope you're having a good start to the summer. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today for this special Pride edition of Your Support in Action. I'm especially happy to welcome those of you who are joining us for the first time. For anyone I haven't had the chance to meet already, my name is Danny Whitman, and I have the honor of serving as the Executive Director of Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. I look forward to getting to know you better and hopefully seeing you in person soon, perhaps at our upcoming Broadway Barks, Fire Island Dance Festival, or Broadway Flea Market and Grand Auction. Today, I'm excited for you as a valued member of the Broadway Cares family to join this celebration of pride and conversation with health-focused organizations. Because of you, this month, Broadway Cares provided 2,126,000 dollars to 263 social service providers across 43 states, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. That combined with support from earlier this year to 148 meal organizations addressing hunger and its cross section with HIV and other illnesses and poverty, and 51 major health and advocacy organizations, and of course, being the largest supporter of the Entertainment Community Fund, that all is your support in action. I'll be honest, these are complicated times. In the past few months, we've heard from more than 100 organizations funded by Broadway Cares, all dealing with the complicated terrain of major government funding cuts and proposed cuts. This work and your support have never been more vital. Millions across the country rely on you and Broadway Cares for the life-saving care, health care, medications, food, housing, emergency assistance, and so much more. Thank you for being a stalwart champion of Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS and millions across the country who need you. Today, we'll hear from three remarkable organizations on the front lines fighting for the LGBTQIA community and to learn more about how you help provide safe queer spaces that ensure care and spark advocacy. We'll be joined by Broadway Care's Major Gifts and Planned Giving Officer, Nick Mayo, to moderate this conversation. Our first guest is a dedicated nurse practitioner specializing in HIV/AIDS medicine, gender affirming care, and substance use, with a passion for medicine as a tool for social justice and equity. They have started a street medicine program which brings together medical providers and community partners to provide HIV prevention, addiction treatment, gender affirming hormone therapy, and much more, in addition to offering drug supply testing and harm reduction services. Please welcome from the Los Angeles LGBT Center, Medical Director of Addiction, Medicine, and Chronic Pain Management. Wow, that's a title. Joe Barbikis, and our moderator, Nick Mayo.
Hi, y'all. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you.
Hey, Joe. Hey,
Hi, how are
Nick,
you?
it's good to see you there.
Thank you for joining us, Joe.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to jump in quickly. Danny mentioned that title. Let's talk a little bit. Let's break it down a little bit. Direction of Addiction Medicine. Talk. What does that mean?
So as a director of addiction medicine here, we've really expanded our services to include all sorts of addiction here at the center. Recently with what was mentioned with the street medicine, which is essentially us setting up in parking lots and becoming a first come, first serve service for anybody, regardless of ability to pay. I think when we first started here with those services, we were really focusing on opioid use disorder, but we expanded to meet the needs of our community in particular, and included much more meth addiction services and alcohol use disorders as well. And so, yeah, it really just took off from there. And we've been treating people ever since. And I mean, not to expand on it even further, but I I think in the themes of what we're probably going to talk about today, including the other providers, is that these centers are kind of people's last stop of wanting to get help before the worst can happen. So overdoses or
I want to
even imprisonments. Yeah,
understand a little bit more about this as their last stop. What have their stops been before they come to you?
with the stop of which one?
Meaning they come to you as their like in their last in their they need in their last big need of hope, right? This is
Correct. Right. That is the what we were getting at is that this is the last stop before more detrimental choices are being made, um, meaning life-changing choices. And even throughout the stories that I was like hoping to share today, that was the running theme of people that were kicked out of other services because of even like veterans and people that were working in the veteran affairs that came up with urines that didn't meet expectations. So they were kicked out of their treatment centers, and with nowhere else to go, they end up on the street and coming to us for more guidance. Yeah,
a particular story like that that sticks out to you, or a person who came through the center?
absolutely. I have a young woman that came to us after her partner died of fentanyl overdose. Um, she was explaining to me that she went to three other clinics before finding us, and she was running out of hope for getting treatment. She was maybe smoking fentanyl about 4 to 5 times a day, and you could tell it was aging her quite a bit. And um, if no one's told you yet, too, fentanyl once you're up on that high is not fun anymore. It's not a fun drug to take. They're not getting much of a high. All they're treating is the withdrawal of their last dose. It's I've heard it explained by a patient as like it's like you're kind of standing on top of the Empire State Building's antenna with nowhere else to go. You can't get any higher, and if you take one step, you're going to fall. Um, so in that sort of case, I was talking to her, we were doing an assessment. I was trying to figure out like the best sort of way to go about this. She opens up that she's 6 months pregnant as well, with her former partner's child. So that was why she was refused other services because of the risks involved of treating her. But she said she did not want to have a baby that was addicted to fentanyl, and that was her main goal. And so we got her down. We took her down from the antenna step by step with different forms of treatment, along with Suboxone, and she delivered her baby. Her baby is healthy. And now I think she's 5 years sober. She's doing very, very well. But that story happens continuously outside. Like I said, she's one huge example. But yeah, that's her baby. Thank you. She gave me permission to share the picture. I get a very big hug from her now every time I see her. And the mother's doing great. She's in beauty school. She's actually a huge advocate for our community now. She's doing fantastic. And it's just I love seeing that picture. And that happens every day that we're outside that story. Not necessarily her story, which is a fantastic one, but people that are out of options. They've tried other more conventional, even bigger corporation hospitals that just turn them away, or even the Veterans Affairs, which is also at risk of losing lots of their money recently, and they come to us for their last hope.
Joe, first of all, as a father of a 9-year-old, this really touches me because I know what it's like to want to do anything to help them, and that was her goal in coming to you. Tell us a little bit about what was some of what happened in the treatment that you provided for this woman that made a difference? Because clearly she had been trying to figure it out, but what was the thing that really got through and really helped her to make such a significant change, turning away from, I can't imagine the withdrawal and the anxiety on top of that and so much other pressures. Tell me what made that happen?
I think our care and our care model is really special because of our history. We know that how to best treat people is by starting with dignity. I'm sure she wasn't getting any of that from the other clinics that she was visiting. And we don't, I mean, of course, sobriety is a fantastic answer for so many people out there, but at our center, we kind of thrive to our philosophy, which is the opposite of addiction isn't always sobriety, but it's always community. And being in community with other people, which is something that we can provide very easily here. We're very fortunate because we have so many groups and mental health practitioners here. She joined the Women's in Recovery group that meets every twice a week for an hour. Um, but I mean, being not to like, you know, keep going about this, but it was Mother Teresa that had a quote that people don't starve for bread, but human dignity. And she was obviously starving for dignity. She was and you heard how even I spoke about her. She looked like she was smoking fentanyl 6 times a day, right? But just saying like, hey, like I hear that your goal is that you don't want to have a baby addicted to fentanyl. I never heard that you said that you wanted to stop fentanyl, but how can I get you the rest of the way there and it'd be best possible for you? And that's what we got.
You know, it's so one of my, you've answered so many of the questions I had for you, and we're just scratching the very tiniest bit of surface of all the many services that the Los Angeles LGBTQ Center offers. Just the surface of what all that you do. But I was going to ask you on Pride Month, what brings you pride? But when I saw your face looking at that child's photo, you answered it for me. So, I mean, I can only imagine how incredibly proud you and your fellow staff members there must feel. And you said that the words dignity and community, which is what this conversation is about, right? On our month of Pride, to advocate for dignity and a community. And which comes first? With the chicken or the egg, community or dignity, dignity or the community. But together, putting that as a priority is so incredible. And I want everyone to know here in this audience, forgive me for not saying this earlier, I would love for you to join this conversation. Raise your hands. There's a raise your hand feature. Ask questions of Joe or Danny or myself. We really want to hear your voice. We want to answer questions that you have, knowing that at the end we'll also come together, all of our panelists, to answer your questions. But if there's something that you want more clarity on, or you want to talk more about dignity or community or fentanyl or addiction and recovery services, please find your way to, well, someone just asked. Douglas asked, it sounds like you're the first meeting. You are first meeting people when they are not where you want them to be, which helps to get them where they can be. That is dignity personified versus condemnation and shame. Douglas, that is so true. Joe, greeting people where they are, helping getting them where they can be, is its own definition of dignity. Thank you, Douglas. And anyone, please use that feature and raise your hand. Joe, we have so much more to talk about. We could go on and on and on, but I also want to make sure we get a full, well-rounded conversation. But if you don't mind, would you please join us at the end for our sort of round-robin table discussion? But in the meantime, from all of us here, thank you for the work you do. And everyone who's listening, everyone who's tuning in, the work that Joe just talked about would not be possible. That person standing on the top of the Empire State Building would still be there questioning what the next move is if it weren't for all of us working together in community to advocate for dignity. So thank you, Joe, for bringing that to our awareness. And
Thank you.
we'll chat at the end with everyone else.
I'll see you then.
Thanks, Joe. Okay, whoops, I need to, okay. Our second guest is an activist educator, and Hudson Valley native. As a trans man of Filipino descent, he has devoted his life's work to dismantling structural barriers to services for marginalized communities, particularly communities of color. As a model, advocate, and literal poster child, and I'll say in 2016, I learned that this person was featured in the internationally recognized BUNYC Transgender Bathroom Access Campaign. Our guest is steadfast in his dedication to health in the LGBT plus community. Please welcome the Hudson Valley LGBTQ plus Community Center's Director of Programs and Services, Charlie Solidum.
Hey,
Hey there.
welcome. We have a poster person in the house, y'all. So this is come on. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for the introduction and
It's good to
for
see you, Charlie.
just welcoming me to this. Yeah.
Of course. Charlie, I just educate myself really quickly. Do you know that one of the first LGBT centers that was opened in 1970 in Albany? So up in here in New York was one of the first centers that was founded. Isn't that wild?
Yeah, I'm sorry. You cut out a little bit. Um I didn't hear what you said.
It's all right. I want to talk about the Hudson Valley area. What about what's going on in there and what's so important? If someone were to say, why do you need a center in Hudson Valley? Talk about your community and what the needs are there. How do you get involved with your community and how does your community find you?
We're really uniquely situated here in the Hudson Valley, with a lot of really robust queerness in the culture. There's a lot going on here for folks that are coming out and trying to find community. I myself was raised in the lower Hudson Valley and sort of seeing how the area has blossomed into this, particularly the Kingston area, blossomed into this place where families are being drawn to for being able to really flourish and that people can build community with. I think that one of the things that's really great about the Hudson Valley that's big draw is we're starting to see folks come from other states, particularly states that are, under threat with regard to access to care for transgender young people, and they're sort of coming to New York and particularly the Hudson Valley to find reprieve from that and find resources where find a doctor that can be allies with them in their care. And so, there's also a lot of really robust grassroots organizing. We partner with a lot of different, there's a fair amount of transgender organizing. There's groups known as there's Trans Closet, which offers free clothing to folks who are transitioning. There's also, a lot being done to cultivate joy in the community and really sort of explore different ways that people can get together, but also, really celebrate each other and celebrate, the fact that we're here in the Hudson Valley.
I'm interested in your Changing Rooms program. Would you mind sharing with us? And I also just want to encourage everyone, use the raise the hand feature if you'd like to ask a question of Danny or Charlie or myself. We love hearing from you. We want this to feel like it's a dialogue as opposed to three talking heads. So please join the conversation. But Charlie, in the meantime, could you tell us a little bit about the Changing Room program and what that is?
Yeah, so the Changing Room sort of came out of the desire for people to have access to clothing that matches their gender identity. We would see that we have some support groups for transgender folks that meet here at the center. And what we were seeing is that folks were coming out and not necessarily knowing how they wanted to present themselves, or they didn't have access to clothing that made them feel good in their gender, that they wanted to be recognized as. And so we saw this need for transgender people to have clothing that matches what they feel inside. And so the changing room really came out of that need. We have a space on the third floor of the center that we've converted from, it used to be a bathroom, but now it is our changing room. It is a place where there is a variety of free clothing that anybody can come in, try on, take home. We've got, clothing as well as gender affirming accessories, bras, binders. We've got shoes. We've got, all these different elements that people can use to sort of build their new selves, and really have a safe space to do so. We wanted to have a physical space because what we we're seeing is that folks in the area were not necessarily full-time in the gender that they wanted to be living in. So what we've seen in the changing room is that folks will come to the center, come to the changing room, get dressed, and exist in the presentation that feels most comfortable to them, hang out at the center, and just exist in a safe space where they could really try on a new gender, try on a new presentation, without having to spend a lot of money on it. Sorry.
Which leads me to one of our comments from Joan here in the audience. Says, I love that aspect of joy. And her center is filled with joy as well. And joy is an act of activism, as we all know. Also, Jessica, who grew up in the Hudson Valley, said, thank you for all you do in the Hudson Valley. One of the hardest things growing up in Kingston was hearing of the amounts of homophobia. Knowing that you are helping people feel seen and included in safe spaces makes her heart happy. He also wants to know, how are you doing with in the area about youth and homelessness in the Hudson Valley? And do you have any services or pair of services for those youth in need?
Yeah, so what we have, we're starting to rebuild our youth programming after being a little bit on pause. We've got a drop-in group that meets every week in our library. We've got a library, which is wonderful to have in a center. It is the largest and oldest collection of LGBTQ focused books in the Hudson Valley. And so we have this beautiful space where young people can hang out and meet other young people, as well as meet queer adults that they didn't necessarily. I'm thinking particularly of this one 14-year-old that we encountered that their grandmother contacted us initially and was like, I've got this grandchild and they're really struggling to be social. They don't know how to interact with their peers. They don't know how to be in community with folks, but the grandparent really wanted this young person to find a place where they can be themselves and be open. And after speaking with this young person, one of the really profound things that he said to me was, he was like, I actually, before coming here, had never met a trans adult before. I've never met somebody who has walked the path that I intend to walk. And, it was really profound to see, not only did that young person connect with the facilitator of that group, but also, connected with the rest of the staff here. Over half of our staff at the center are trans identified, and it's been really, really beneficial for the young people to see us working and living and thriving and being in our joy, and just sort of being an example for Laverne Cox calls them possibility models, being somebody that the young people can look to and see that, like, yes, there is a future for me here.
You said something that's very, very wonderful, and it made me think of dignity and pride, which is the conversation we're having today in these services that are so essential. That grandmother wanted to advocate for her grandchild to have dignity and pride. What if there weren't those resources there for her to reach out? What if there wasn't a center for her to call? She herself didn't have the resources to help advocate for this person's dignity and pride. But because you do, she had a place to turn. And because everyone here in this room, your constant support and advocating for others' dignity and pride, you helped that grandmother in that moment, therefore help someone else find a place of pride and community. So Charlie, I am so grateful for all you're doing in the Hudson Valley, and everyone here. Think about that. We've all been grandchildren. Some of you are grandparents, some of you are parents. What if you yourself didn't have the resources you needed to provide for your most beloved, but you knew somewhere else did? What if that place didn't exist? So you're advocating and making that possible. And I'm grateful beyond measure for everyone in the room for that support, and Charlie for being elbows deep in that work in the Hudson Valley.
Nick, I just want to add, yeah, Charlie, it's truly extraordinary. The recurring theme that I'm hearing is being able to seek a place with resources where both I see myself in other people, but also that I'm seen, that I feel that I'm seen for all the wonderful differences and similarities that I bring to the world. And you mentioned earlier the need for clients to find a doctor who can be an ally in their care. Can you just talk a little bit more? Because I think that many people haven't thought about why a trans person needs to find a doctor who is a true ally and a real helpline, a real helper and supporter, and someone equally invested in their care and their well-being.
So, I mean, I think this is particularly important for youth in this moment in time where, on a federal level, access to care for young trans people is being legislated. And, with the recent decision in the Supreme Court with the Scrimetti case, we're really seeing that there's now a precedent for other states to have similar bans in care. And, a lot of these clinics that provide services to trans people in this area are federally funded. They're federally qualified health centers. So they are under threat, within this new regime. But after, at speaking to one of the providers at the Institute for Family Health, which we partner with fairly regularly, I asked her, like, what are you feeling in this moment? And she was like, they're going to have to drag me off to jail. Like, they're really, these services are so vital that, regardless of regardless of what the outward facing language is, we're always going to be providing the care that people need because we know how important it is. And for trans people, having someone that they can partner with their healthcare is so important. We know that there are, better health outcomes for trans people that are able to be honest and open with their doctors and be affirmed. And so, having somebody who's a collaborator, co-conspirator with you to try and figure out what are the best, not only treatment options, but what are the best ways that they can help you become the best version of themselves. There's a really, it's really valuable to have somebody in your corner that has this information, because we are having, I mentioned a little earlier, folks come from other states to access care here in the Hudson Valley. And I'm thinking of, like, this mother that I met that came from Texas. which, you know, is one of the harshest states for transgender access to care right now. She came from Texas, moved to New York because of the non-discrimination laws and shield laws that we have here. And, you know, she moved because her child is non-binary and their access to care was under threat. And so through coming through the center, we were able to help that family not only get connected to care, but get connected to community. And that mother is now one of our dedicated volunteers, and she works within we're collaborating on a new family initiative that we're calling Queer Kinship, that is basically a model wherein parents of LGBT young people can attend a counselor facilitated support group while there is childcare for their young person happening down the hall, staffed by an LGBT adult.
This is incredible.
So, you know, we're really trying to do intergenerational work here when it comes to families.
Thank you so much for all of that amazing work, for advocating and seeing that people who are coming to you for refuge. Thank you for providing those spaces, that safety, connecting doctors, giving people opportunities in the Hudson Valley. We have so much more to talk about, and I want to make sure we all come back together at the end of the conversation. I know we've only scratched the surface with some of the amazing work that all of these organizations do. But if you don't mind, we'll see you at the end of the conversation in the round table discussion. But thank you so much, and see you at the end.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie. All right. Our final guest brings a passion for public health and 2 decades of experience working as a specialist in infectious diseases. She has a medical degree and a PhD in public health. She serves on the National Viral Hepatitis Roundtable and the Health Federation's HCV Technical Assistance Program. She is known for her advocacy work focused on access to hepatitis C testing and treatment, and is dedicated to improving access to care for some of the most marginalized within the LGBTQ+ community. Please welcome from the Mazzoni Center, Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Stacy Truskin.
Hi there. Thanks for having me join you today.
Hi, Stacy.
I have so much the services that are done at Mazzoni. Please give a give a an idea of, when we talk about medical services that are provided, walk us through some of the things that you provide to your community.
Absolutely. So at Mazzoni Center, we really aim to be somebody's medical home. Our mission is to serve the LGBTQ community. Our roots are in HIV care, and we continue to do that with a pretty large proportion of our patients living with HIV. We provide viral hepatitis care, primary care, GYN services, sexual health services, a ton of gender affirming care. We provide substance use disorder treatment as well, medical case management, and behavioral health services, both in outpatient one-on-one therapy groups, and we also have embedded behavioral health services right in our primary care practice. The goal really is to have our patients get most of what they need right under our roof and not have them have to traverse the medical system to find what they need. We also do a fair amount of community work as well. We have a pretty deep educational team that partners with schools and other community programs. And we have outreach teams which really aim to engage patients that wouldn't necessarily, find themselves on the subway or bus to our neighborhood in Philadelphia, but really try to meet patients where they are and teach them about what we do and do our best to serve them.
Dr. Truskin, when you talked about having one roof for everyone to get all these services, I just went back to a time when how scary it was for someone who was recently or early diagnosed with HIV anything to find care and to start cherry picking. Oh, I hear this doctor does good with this and that doctor does good with this, but they understand a little bit more of that. the amount of progress we've had and as we know, in order to keep progress, we have to advocate for it. But what a gift it is for someone to find all of the services they need under one umbrella. How much of the excess energy, pain, confusion around a diagnosis can be taken away by knowing that it's all here, we've got you here. And so I just call that into everyone's consciousness. That was not always the case. We know that it wasn't. And so to be talking to you and hearing about the plethora of services you provide, and that everyone here on this Zoom call helps support, is so moving to me. And I'm so grateful for you, for the work that you do, Dr. Truscan. Is there any story, anyone recently who's come to receive services, or someone who, when you think upon, brings you pride, since here we are in Pride Month with a lot of challenges in front of us, a lot, and we know they will continue to come. But that thing
Yeah.
that in the morning going, I remember and I'm proud and I go to serve because I'm proud of this. Is there someone or some instance that comes to mind? And once again, reminding everyone, chime in, have a question, make a statement. Dr. Truscan's here.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, there are a number of stories that I think that allow me to lay my head down on the pillow every night, feeling really proud of the team that works here and proud of the work that we do. It can be something as simple as a young man coming into our sexual health clinic and being concerned that he has an STI and walking out in hand with PrEP, knowing that we've helped protect him from getting HIV and treated whatever he has, and then have him come back the next day with a partner to make sure that they're both safe and that bit by bit we're helping the next generation prevent the HIV epidemic. So that's good work. And then, Charlie's story earlier made me think of a point of pride where, we had a teenager come from another state and to visit grandparents along with his parents. And they were all wearing sweatshirts that said team, the name of the child. And we're just so proud of themselves and proud of this child and supportive of being able to engage, having found a place to engage this person in care and to receive the affirming care that they deserve and that so many are now not able to access. And it was just extraordinary to look at this like family and these matching sweatshirts that like made it a whole family event to come here. And we were just so proud to be able to take care of all of them, not just the patient, but just the whole family as a unit and welcome them to Philadelphia.
That's a beautiful, it makes me want to get sweatshirts for everyone I know.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, most importantly, thank you for creating an environment where that could be possible. I can't imagine a more affirming experience than having your family support you in that kind of public way.
Yeah, and we know that not all of our patients are as lucky to have such supportive families, and we're there for them as well. And we do that through multidisciplinary teamwork. It's why we've expanded our behavioral health services in these stressful times. We want to make sure that there's infrastructure and support to meet all of our patients' needs.
I'm also interested when you talk about the Yes Please Youth Health Education Series, because when you were the person who came in afraid of an STI and then found themselves walking out with PrEP, can you talk a little bit, because we know, and if those of you who don't haven't been made aware, there are so many advances currently happening, not only with the prevention of HIV and AIDS, but more STIs with the introduction of doxyprep and so many things. Talk about that education, because as we know, that's so key. That's so, a little bit about that.
Yes, and also under great risk right now as well. Our program, Yes Please, is a free youth-centered sexual health curriculum for ages 8 to 24, and it's interactive. It's a program that builds knowledge. It promotes inclusive practices and language. It connects youth to local and national resources. And in the 2024 to 2025 school year alone, we reached over 2,000 Philadelphia youth. And it really is about making folks aware in a sex positive way that there's prevention available, that there's a gender unicorn with a full array of options. And it creates an opportunity for dialogue with youth as well, so that this isn't something that they have to seek out on internet searches, but it allows them to ask the questions in a safe space and understand where safe resources are for them to remain healthy, and to keep safe. And so we are very proud of that program, and we host a youth drop-in night here every week, so that youth that hear about us through a lot of that programming have a way in.
That's really extraordinary. Thank you. Information, knowledge is power, and the idea that young people can be ahead of the curve on so many complications in this world, and actually that you have the courage to share the information so they can be safe and smart is so important.
I sort of had a question for you, and because I'm so inspired by all the services that you provide, and but then I thought maybe this would be a great question for the group to ask. So maybe if you don't mind, let's open it up. Everyone step back onto the virtual stage, and this is really a moment. Those of you who are here, use your voice. We'd love to hear from you while the rest of you are entering the virtual space. Come on, don't be shy, Charlie, Joe. I want to give a reflection from Richard. Richard, who is listening to you speak, said, "Thank you all for creating space for our community." Hi, Danny. I'll see you at the Fire Island Dance Festival soon. Richard is a member of the City of Pittsburgh's LGBTQIA+ Commission. Our task is to give voice to concerns of our community and purpose and support legislation that will protect those who are marginalized. He himself owns a vintage clothing store, which he's proud to have created a safe space for those exploring their gender identity. Richard is proud to have been on the forefront of bringing acceptance and compassion to those who need this. By the way, Richard also grew up in the Hudson Valley outside of Albany. So as we realize on this Zoom, the work in each of your communities, and Richard, thank you for your service. Everyone here, thank you so much for all that you do. We're all combined. There are no state lines. We're all affected by the amount of care that you provide. Thank you, Richard, for sharing. So, Dr. Truskin, I was about to ask this of you, but now I ask it of everyone else. Pride, right, is a wonderful time to show and display and stand and protest and look forward and look back. We're doing a lot of things simultaneously during this month. And I have to pause sometimes because I have a tendency to future trip. And in my future trip, sometimes I can doom scroll. My future trip can be of doom because there's a lot of reasons recently that make us scared. So when we're talking about all these advancements, I have to ask the question, what if these services were taken away? What if there was no support? As a specialist in infectious diseases, what if they went away? What are the questions?
Yeah, it is not just a what if, but we see it happening. We know that the CDC has lost funding for HIV prevention, the tremendous strides that we've made as a nation in reducing our rates of HIV, of seeing lifespan extend related to antiretroviral medications. We know these cuts. I mean, we, just like Charlie mentioned earlier, we're one of those federally qualified health center lookalikes that exists, and we do get federal funds, and we have had grants that have been lost. And so it impacts our ability to go out and have the resources to do the HIV testing and to bring folks into care so we can get them PrEP and, if needed, treatment and so on. And so it's not the what, it's happening. And so it doesn't take a lot to imagine what will happen to our STI rates, our HIV rates, without intervention and without counting, because what we know is that a lot of the positions that have been cut are the epidemiologic ones, the ones that count how many people have been impacted. And so without surveillance, without the resources for testing and services, we know what will happen because we lived through it when we didn't have the resources that we've had for the last several decades. And so we need to preserve what remains, and we need to rebuild and build back better.
Beautifully said.
Yeah, what it looks like is what we're dealing with right now. Like Dr. Truskin already said, we got $25 million taken away from us from the federal government. And so we sued him. Uh, and with along with the San Francisco clinics, and we got the money back, but that's not true of the whole continent of Africa right now with what's going on with USAID. I mean, to have global solidarity in this moment, what does it look like is what's going to happen there because of Elon Musk's cuts, not to bring up a name that we all hate. But it's about 7,000 people a day will die without this funding for a total of millions that will die because of USAID funding. And to have global solidarity, HIV is not different here. That's the world that we're living in, and that's the fight that we're going to need to have as well. And seeing again people across state lines, like the two of you, giving me a little bit of hope here too that we're all still in this.
That's one of our biggest things, right? Is that we can understand that the struggles we have don't have state lines. And you said it gives you a little bit of hope. I hope everyone here in this audience, though the stakes have never been higher, we, as Dr. Truskin just said beautifully, we're seeing what's happening, but we're not hopeless. We can do two things simultaneously. We can be proud and fearful. We can make a stance and step and listen. We are evolved enough to where we can do this together. But what's not possible is for us to cease or stop supporting what is important to us. Everyone on the Zoom shares the same values, right? So you're hearing, everyone here, it's called Your Support in Action, but it really is you're seeing it, hearing it in action. Everything that Charlie is doing and Joe is doing and Dr. Truskin, that is made possible because of your support. And the stakes have never been higher. And hearing this from you and knowing that the alternative is quite scary. We've seen it. We've had it before. It makes me want to get off the Zoom and do a little something more. So thank you so much for taking time. Is there anyone in the audience has a last thought or a last question or a hallelujah? Or I'm going to share that, and Danny, maybe we'll both do this. I've asked you each about what makes you proud. I am proud that I get to spend my time this way with these people, everyone in this room. I am proud that decisions I've made in my life have led me to be with you, all of you in this space. It makes me proud, and I want to continue that. So thank you for being my pride this Pride Month. I'm proud of us. I feel a great, and with pride comes responsibility. Danny, what's making you proud in this moment? Not overall, just in this moment.
Yeah, what makes me proud is to be surrounded by people on this Zoom, but also in this organization, people who are willing to step up and take a risk for other people again and again, even when they think they've made an accomplishment and had a victory, that what else can I do?
Yes. Amen. I want everyone in this Zoom, if you don't mind, go to the chat, type a word, type a sentence that's making you proud. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what Carrie Ann Harold just said. Carrie Ann says that she's a teacher in an inner city public middle school. And she asks of all of you, Joe, Dr. Truskin, Charlie, what are some physical look-fors that I would be responsive for an LGBTQ youth that may be in need of medical services, but may be afraid to come forward vocally? So what are some signs as an inner city school teacher that Carrie Ann Harrell would look for? Just generalizations of something that they might keep their eye out for. And while we're doing that, everyone go to that chat, type in something you're proud. But how can we help Carrie Ann as an inner city school teacher?
I would offer that if you see a child who appears to be struggling, who isn't as engaged as they once were, if there's they don't have the same sparkle in their eye that they maybe once had before, if they're keeping more to themselves, I would be concerned. And so, oftentimes kids are really resilient and they hide their pain. But as teachers, you're observing them every day, you're interacting with them every day. You have an incredibly important job. And I think feeling less worried about reaching out and engaging them and asking, like, is there something going on? Is there anything I can do to support you? But depression and anxiety and fearfulness right now is common among many of us, certainly on this call, but particularly among our children. And so we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to create a safe space for them to speak up.
I just want to read out loud. And by the way, it's the Q&A, not the chat. My bad. But I'm reading, I'm proud to be a part of this community. I'm proud that my son in Virginia offered shelter and a home to his trans friend when they would have been homeless. Those are some things that people are proud of. So we're all doing this together. I'm proud of your son, Diane. I celebrate your son for giving shelter to a homeless friend of his who would have been homeless otherwise. There's so much to be proud of and so much work to do. Thank you for taking this time to be together on Pride Month. I'm going to dismiss myself from the virtual stage and hand it back over to our wonderful leader, Danny Whitman. But thank you, Dr. Truscan and Joe and Charlie.
Yeah, thank you, Stacy, Joe, and Charlie. Thank you for joining us. It's been an incredible conversation and very enlightening. And please continue to do this work, fight forward, and in that process, take care of yourselves because you can't take care of our community if you don't take care of yourselves. I want to share that I've been thinking about the cuts a lot because of the amount of emails and calls that we've been getting from grantees. And I wish that Broadway Cares could fix all of that. And we can't. However, we'd like to do a little something here and there. And as we always say at Broadway Cares, every dollar makes a difference. And so, in addition to your annual grants, we'd like to make a small discretionary grant in honor of your participation today and in thanks and truly in tribute to the work that you do and on behalf of everybody here that's attended an additional small $2,500 discretionary grant to just help wherever that's needed, whether that's meeting someone where they are in an unusual situation, whether that's providing the clothes that help them feel empowered, getting them the life-saving medication. Thank you for doing that day in and day out. I want to be mindful of our time together and say one more thank you to Joe, Charlie, and Stacy for joining us. And thank you all for tuning in and standing with Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS during this critical time and always. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.